Hi, welcome to Quirky Queen's Journals. My name's Kirsten. So today I've went all kind of experimental because I was watching a channel called Kirsten. I don't think I've said it properly. It's a lady. She does lots of beautiful kind of, that kind of cloudscape type abstract art where it's all quite, all the colours are really graduated, they're really delicate. Oh, and I was really taken with them. So she uses high flow acrylic paints, which I do not have. However, I had some pouring medium. So I put the pouring medium over the canvas panel. Just did the lot. Then I've put some titanium buff over the top. And this is some cadmium yellow. Now, what I'm trying to do is, I know there's a lot of paint on there, but I'm really just trying to get it blended in with the pouring medium. Now, I didn't want to spend the time mixing all the paints together because I end up with a lot of wastage. So I kind of thought, let's try and sort of adapt it to the way that I like to paint. My hands are absolutely covered in acrylic inks and I've got blue acrylic ink all over my fingers. So anyway, this is white acrylic ink and yellow acrylic ink that I'm putting on. So I'm using these inks to try and graduate the edges, to try and make them blend, I suppose. When I watched the lady doing her high flow acrylic paints, as soon as you put a drop in, it was beautiful. And I think my problem is that I have been far too heavy-handed with everything. I don't know when to stop. And also, I can't just walk away and leave it alone. I have no patience. So, I had tried paint pouring in the past, which is why I had pouring medium, and I was useless at it. I don't think that I use enough paint because, well, paint's expensive. And also, I just can't leave it alone. I don't have the patience to let it dry and do its thing. I want to make it happen. However, when I seen the paintings that she was producing, I do want to take the time to learn. I'm going to buy some of those high flow acrylic paints and I'm going to practice further with them. So I'm still trying to blend what's on here with the pouring medium that I'd put on at the very start. That is some gold acrylic paint. Now it has dried somewhat. I think it's maybe 10 or 15 minutes. But it's not dry. It's just dried a little bit. So I have put on some transparent raw umber acrylic ink, which I've loved. I think it goes really well with those colours as well. The only thing is I've got a tendency, I'm just making everything muddy. In my attempt to make them all kind of work together, I just don't know when to stop, and I suppose that'll come with experience. I did a wee close-up here of the wee yellow dots. They're so primitive compared to hers. Hers was like turned into massive eyeballs right away. So this is, I want to say alizarin crimson. Nathanol crimson. I'm not sure, but I put purple in it anyway. So I loved it when I put the purple in because purple and yellow obviously are complementary. So my idea was anyway to keep them separate because obviously they make brown when they're kind of put together. So it all does end up quite muddy, and that's just me overdoing it, not letting things dry enough. But it is my first time kind of trying this. So, you've got to kind of push it and see what you can do and what you cannot do. That is red acrylic ink. I'm just letting you know what's ink and what's paint. So that was some water. That was probably the start of the end, actually, there. Where, you know, everything starts going together. I wish I'd just stopped here. Should have just stopped right there. Because they are flowing together beautifully. I think that would have made something... I think that would have looked good. But anyway, I kept going. And who knows what that could have become. It might have just stayed like that and not turned into anything. So I have this canvas panel sitting on top of a roll of sellotape, just so I can manipulate it a wee bit for tilting and letting the drips run off. The other thing is, my acrylic inks are they're not old. I mean, I've had them about a year maybe, but I've used them a lot. And what I do is I just keep topping the bottles up with water. So the white is more clear than white, probably. But the red is still quite... I've not used as much of the red, so, you know, it's still quite an intense colour. I've just added black. I don't know what possessed me. I think at this stage I was thinking, oh, it looks really good. Let's just go in and make it even more intense. And probably, I don't know, I need to experiment more. But probably what I should have done is I should have waited for it to dry at that very, you know, a couple of minutes ago when I said it was really good, that I liked it. Maybe let that layer dry and then come in again. But no, I'm just going back in the red. So I'm on repair mode now, thinking that a miracle's going to happen with it. That was just a cake decorating wedge thing that I got for a couple of pounds for the set. Still trying to get some of the pouring medium in as well that I'd put underneath. And it's starting to look a wee bit more exciting here. There's a lot of grey. I know I'm speaking quite negatively about what I'm doing, but it's just, obviously when you try something new, you do have to push it and see what you can and can't do. That was silicone drops that I was dropping in there. That's what they use to make cells on acrylic painting pours. I've never achieved a cell, ever. So I used the pouring medium in the first place because it lowers viscosity, which made me think, right, it must make the paint more fluid, I suppose. And that's why I used that, because it was to try and replicate the high flow acrylic paints in some way. So I've added in blue now as well, just to say that had dried a bit. Also, because my acrylic inks already contain a lot of water, I'm not really adding water in, but I probably wouldn't use you'll run out of acrylic inks very fast if you use them the way that I've just used them. Sometimes I do a tilt and I think, oh, that looks amazing. Stop. Obviously, it really is quite muddy now, but it's still making some really interesting shapes, and I don't know why. I should probably do a few of them at the same time so that I at least have something else to entertain me while it's drying. I mean, that looks really good, doesn't it? I'd love to know what that looked like dry right there. You know, what I will say though, this reminds me of the jelly plate and how it's quite a mindful exercise where you can just while away your time on it, and it's quite captivating. You're not overly thinking, apart from how to prevent making more mud. In my case, I was thinking about that while I kept making more mud. But I do let this dry overnight, and I do come in and do a little bit of abstract art on it to try and repair it. There we go. That is the exact painting. Do you know one thing I do notice? See, for the amount of stuff that I put on it, there's a flatness to it. You know, when you do paint layers, you have like levels and textures. This is really quite flat, and it's also very intense. Now, the pouring medium is like a gloss. It does say that it'll give a glossy finish, and I think that's added to it, but it's very rich and very intense colours. And I would dearly love to know, you know, see if I'd just held back and I hadn't added so much. You know, what would that have been like? Because it obviously is really quite dark in places here, which is wonderful, but I would have loved it with just a bit less of the darkness, you know, so that there was more contrast overall. But, I mean, to me, that's... to me, it's like a sort of a stormy sky, or it could be like buildings, you know, where there's, you know, the lights coming through and it's night time, or it could really be anything you want it to be. I will say that the Kunderschlett channel, her paintings are much more delicate and professional and everything else. I'm just experimenting at this stage, and I'm very happy actually with how it turned out in the end, and I really cannot wait to purchase some high flow acrylic paints and do it properly. So I'm using some white and titanium white. That was glazing fluid, which just helps the paint, because I'm trying to blend it, it just helps it. I just think it flows better. It's easier to work with. Your paintbrush doesn't drag the same. Now, this is a dry watercolour brush that I'm using to kind of buff it out, make it more graduated looking. That dreamy look, kind of dreamy like. That's what I'm trying to create, I suppose. More masking tape. So, what am I putting on? Oh, yes. So I put some white down here. What I'm trying to do is, I suppose, I'm trying to bring balance to it. And this is too white, but also it doesn't have the same... Everything's quite kind of got a lovely rich shininess to it, and this didn't. So I end up putting a spot of red acrylic ink over it. You know, it looks like a bandage on top of it, like somebody stuck a big plaster down. Now, I was trying to take off the excess that's seeped under the tape. However, I ended up making raggedy edges with it to try and see if that would help. I mean, there's some parts of that painting that's just beautiful. I really like the yellow, how the yellow turned out. The Colour by Felix channel, he does a lot of buffing of his paints. That's what I felt like when you're putting your foundation on. You know, your makeup, and you buff it out. I'm just using that as a ruler. So this is me putting on that wee spot of red acrylic ink. You'll see it sitting on top of my cake decorating tool on the left-hand side in a minute. There it is. So I also, you don't see it on camera, but you see it in the last picture. I do make the bottom of the painting a bit more purple, and I also add in a yellow square on the left-hand side because it just wasn't balancing. And I just want to say I really enjoyed this. You need to try it. And also, thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Oh, one more thing. This is a blue glaze. So this is one spot of blue acrylic ink. I think it's phthalo blue with glazing fluid in water. And that's it. So thanks very much for watching, and take care.